Edited to say my hurt irritation is directed towards my spouse. My 10-year-old somewhat exposed that nothing had been planned. When I discussed with my 47-year-old adult male husband that I was mentally overplanning trips, I asked him to work with the kids on coming up with ideas. Our trips are not planned out to the minute/hour/etc., but have a general idea of what we want to do that day. DC has so much to do, this I know, but several things require pre-planning and pre-booking. I am not holding my 10-year-old responsible for this. She is just the one to inform me that they never even discussed this trip at all. This year, for spring break, I, 40-year-old female, gave my kids, 10-year-old female and 17-year-old male, the choice of 4 cities to visit for spring break: Toronto, Chicago, Washington, D.C., or Cancun, Playa del Carmen. Before they were allowed to choose, I expressed to them and my 47-year-old husband that this trip I would not be planning. All other family trips and even couples trips have been planned exclusively by me. Some even paid for exclusively by me. We have always had separate finances. I have always done this willingly, but with irritation. I feel we would never travel if I didn't plan it, but I also feel there would be complaints that we never go anywhere. I also feel like it becomes my responsibility to ensure everyone is having fun, we do things each person would like, and scope out local eats well in advance to make sure everyone gets at least something they would enjoy. I have never been told this is my job. I have just done it. It is important to me that everyone enjoys trips, has fun, learns something, etc. The kids chose DC. They have never been, and my husband has never been. I have been quite a few times. I asked for this trip to be planned by them, kids and spouse. I expressed this before they chose the city. I offered reminders encouraging them to discuss together what they wanted to do, see, eat, etc. I also told them that typically when I plan a trip, I plot things we want to do in that city in a trip within Apple Maps so that you can see what things are close together, making planning easier. In the 4 weeks from decision time to leaving for DC, I did not hear or observe much discussion about the trip. That's okay. I don't need them to plan things how I plan them. Mentally, I am nervous about the situation, but if I said I don't want to plan this trip, then it's not okay for me to micromanage how they plan. Now we are driving there, and my daughter, 10, asked me what kinds of things, specifically, we are going to do on our trip. Excuse me? It is revealed that literally nothing is planned except where we are staying. Because I booked that, I offered in the beginning and actually gave them several options to choose from. Everything that is planned is more of a mental list of things they'd like to do, see, potentially. I am pissed, yes. More so, I am hurt, I am sad. Part of me wants to take the next 4 hours of driving time to plot out things so we can see things that are close in proximity so as not to waste time traversing the city. I know if I do that, I will be filled with resentment. The other part of me wants to do that, plot out things and actually just do it alone. Also, I'll add that I am aware that winging it is totally reasonable, and we have had many trips where nothing was planned, set in stone, and everything was great. For me, it's the nothing, not a damn thing planned. Would I be the jerk for just doing my own thing? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Your need for relief with vacation planning was obviously directed at your husband, just that your kids were involved. Take the participant seat, make suggestions but don't book anything, and let him flounder. There's tons to do in DC, but you do need to plan. There's no beach to lounge at for days. It was clear this is not a lounging vacation. You do appear to have communication problems with your husband, unless you very clearly stated a week in advance. Honey, we're going to a big city with long lines, traffic, and too many choices. It's exhausting to me to figure stuff out on the fly, and you know I have not planned a single thing. You're okay with me being a participant, and you literally running the trip, right? But you're not the idiot. I literally abandoned a Europe trip I was planning because my husband and kids could do nothing but whine about everything I suggested. I think many people either didn't read your post and edits or have never planned a vacation for a family. Comment 2. Not the idiot currently. Nearly everyone is saying you are the jerk. I disagree. For years, it was my responsibility to plan and execute all activities. It got very old. If everyone had fun, I didn't receive any praise. But if something bombed, it was all my fault. I agree with commenters that your 10-year-old has no blame, but your husband and 17-year-old should have planned something. You did give them a month to come up with ideas, I would say. You have seen DC. Take the 10-year-old and have fun. Leave your husband and 17-year-old to figure things out. At the end of the trip, see if you and the 10-year-old or husband and 17-year-old had more fun. Let them learn if they like planned vacations. They may be the type who prefer to wing it. Less work for you in the future. Now, for the update, thanks for all the comments from last time. So we got to DC, and guess what? The first day was a mess. We wandered around missing the opening times for several museums because, surprise, no one checked when they opened. My husband just shrugged it off, saying we could go another day. But the next bombshell dropped when my son admitted he'd lost his wallet, probably back at a food truck we visited. It had his ID, some cash, and his debit card. Great, right? I was fuming, but I kept it together for the kids. We spent the next few hours canceling cards and retracing our steps, but no luck finding the wallet. The day was basically shot. My husband tried to lighten the mood by suggesting we just explore the city, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of disappointment. It felt like everything I had feared was coming true. The following day, my daughter, bless her heart, tried to make a plan. She wanted to see the pandas at the zoo. We all agreed, thinking it would be a simple, fun outing. But when we got there, we found out you needed tickets booked in advance. They were fully booked for the next 3 days. My daughter's face fell, and I felt a pang of guilt for not stepping in sooner. That night, my husband and I had a talk. He apologized, admitting he didn't realize how much effort goes into planning. He said he took me for granted and promised to make it up to me. I wanted to believe him, but actions speak louder than words, right? The next day, he surprised us with tickets to a popular interactive spy museum. He'd woken up early and stood in line to get them. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. The kids had a blast, and for a moment, I saw the man I married, the one who could be thoughtful when he put his mind to it. But then, as if things couldn't get more complicated, my son got a call from a friend back home. His friend's dad, who was also my husband's business partner, had been rushed to the hospital. My husband was torn. He wanted to be there for his friend and business, but he also didn't want to leave us. I told him to go, that we'd manage. He left that night and suddenly I was in charge again. The rest of the trip was a blur. I planned our days, making sure we hit all the highlights. The kids were helpful and we made some good memories. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that I'd been pushed back into a role I was trying to escape. We got home and life went back to normal. My husband's business partner recovered, and my husband threw himself back into work. He thanked me for handling everything, but it felt hollow. I was back to being the planner, the organizer, the one who made sure everything ran smoothly. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any more strained, my husband came home with news. His business partner had decided to retire, effective immediately, leaving my husband to run the company alone. It was a huge opportunity, but it also meant more responsibility, more stress, and less time for family. I was supportive, of course. It's what you do for family. But inside, I was screaming. It felt like every time we took a step forward, we took 2 steps back. I accepted the situation, thinking it was just another hurdle we'd overcome. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was a sign that things were changing, and maybe not for the better. Thanks for reading. My family criticizes me for supporting my best friend over my sister, so I cut them off and show them what loyalty really means. That's what my mother said, I said. Not fluent. I, 30-year-old male, live with my best friend Mike, 27-year-old male, and I pay all of our bills. In important context, Mike is gay, and he was exposed by a cousin to the family while finishing college, and his parents simply stopped helping and disowned him. He went into a deep depression where he had to stop working and take a break from college because he was so fricked. He helped me with what he had saved, and when everything was done, he said he would leave because he couldn't help anymore. And at the time, I was already working and a good salary. I told him to relax and just clean the bathroom, which I was responsible for, that I managed the bills. And since then, we've had this agreement for 3 years. Mike has developed health problems that make it difficult for him to get a job. During this time, he, of his own free will, started taking care of the house and making our food, saying it was a way of giving back for everything I do. He even jokes that he's a stay-at-home friend, and I don't mind paying for everything. The problem is my mother doesn't have such a good financial situation, and when my sister was accepted to college in my city, she called me and my sister telling me the news and asked if she could live with me and that she wouldn't be able to help much with the bills, so she asked for help. I responded saying that there is no space at home because I live with my friend. She asked if I could help with the bills when she lives in my city, and I replied that I couldn't, as I already have my responsibilities and couldn't commit to helping with that too. She ended up realizing that he was still my friend, who she knew I helped pay the bills, and asked if I still supported Mike, and I said yes, but he helped me with many other things. She exploded saying that I wanted to support a 27-year-old dude, but to help my sister who needs help to go to college, I didn't want to. I asked jokingly to my sister if she would agree to take care of the house, make our food, and help me with other things in exchange for having everything paid for by me, and she replied that she was not my maid. And I responded by saying that then I prefer Mike, and even if she said yes, I wouldn't change my mind, because 27-year-old dude is my best friend and helpful. I hung up before I heard any more shoot, and since then I've been bombarded with messages from them saying that my sister wouldn't have time to be my maid because she's studying, and that it was unfair to ask her to do the same as someone who doesn't do anything all day, like Mike. They even questioned my sexuality, saying that our relationship was too gay. I'm asexual. No, I'm not super close with them. Am I the idiot? By the way, Mike is getting a graduate degree and looking forward to a new job, and maybe he can retire already, but he's trying to get a job. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, they even questioned my sexuality, saying that our relationship was too gay. I'm asexual. Wow, bye Felicia's. No, I'm not super close with them. Huh, can't imagine why not. Comment 2, not the jerk. Sometimes we can choose to support a friend who does what they can do in return over a family member who expects unconditional support. Now, for the update, thanks for sticking around. So here's what went down. Just when I thought things couldn't get more tangled, they did. Mike's cousin, the same one who outed him, showed up out of the blue. Apparently, he's been feeling guilty and decided to make amends by offering Mike a job at his company. A good one, too, with benefits and all. Mike was over the moon and I was happy for him, but I couldn't shake off this nagging feeling. Turns out, I was right to be wary. The cousin had been scheming with my mother. They figured if Mike got a job, he'd move out, and my sister could take his place. I found out when I overheard a call between Mike's cousin and my mom. They were laughing about how they had me wrapped around their fingers. I felt like a fool, but I kept it to myself, thinking I could sort this out. I confronted Mike and he swore he knew nothing about it. I believed him, maybe because I wanted to, and we decided he should take the job anyway. It was a chance for him to get back on his feet, and I couldn't let my family's manipulation ruin that for him. But then my sister arrived in town, and things went from bad to worse. She showed up at my doorstep with her bags, saying she had nowhere else to go. I let her in, thinking it'd be temporary. That was my big mistake. She started acting like she owned the place, and Mike, trying to be nice, ended up doing most of her chores. I was working late one night when I got a call from a neighbor. There was a commotion at my place. I rushed home to find my sister throwing a party. Mike was locked in his room, looking like he was on the verge of another breakdown. I lost it. I kicked everyone out, including my sister. She left, screaming about how I was choosing Mike over family. The aftermath was a mess. My mom was calling nonstop, siding with my sister, of course. Mike was grateful, but also worried about the tension. I assured him it was fine, but deep down I was seething with resentment towards my sister and my mother for their selfishness. Just when I thought we could breathe, Mike's health took a turn for the worse. Stress, the doctor said. He needed surgery, something we hadn't anticipated. I was back to square one, supporting him through recovery, all while dealing with my family's relentless guilt tripping. Mike's cousin came by, feigning concern, but I saw right through him. He dropped the act when I confronted him about the job offer being a setup. He just shrugged, saying it was business, and that I should be thanking him for helping Mike get a job. I was too tired to argue. I just wanted peace, And if that meant cutting ties with my family, so be it. Mike's job was on hold until he recovered, but he was determined to make it work. He didn't want to be a burden, he said. I told him he never was. In the end, my sister found a place with some classmates, and my mother stopped calling. It was quiet, finally. Mike's getting better, and we're getting by, just the two of us. It's not perfect, but it's our kind of normal. Thanks for reading. My in-laws mocked our favorite Indian restaurant and made a scene. But after they blamed us for a car accident, I served them papers and watched as the judge threw out their case and my wife cut them off for good. My wife, 38 years old, and I, 41 years old, took her parents for dinner at an Indian restaurant earlier this evening. They don't like driving at night anymore, and their house was only a short detour, so we offered to take them. We arrive at the restaurant, and that's when the fun begins. We told them multiple times before making the reservation that it was an Indian restaurant. They proceed to look at the menus and then complain that they don't like the look of anything. I suggest that they get a korma and butter chicken between them. My wife supports the idea and they grumble, but agree. The waiter comes to take our order. My wife orders, I order, the waiter turns to them. They say nothing and turn to look at my wife. She sighs and then orders for them. The waiter leaves and she whispers to them, demanding to know what just happened. Her father uses his outdoor voice to bemoan Muslim extremists coming into our country. I draw in my breath, not wanting to say anything I'd later regret. My wife testily replies that A, India is majority Hindu, and B, not all Muslims are extremists. Her father dismisses her with they're all the same, and then goes into how two of his friends died during 9/11 for about the 400th time and how she should have some respect. The food arrives and it's good. My wife and I both enjoy it. My in-laws eat it and make a show of complaining, but by the end, both their plates are almost empty. Liars. Now, my wife and I were prepared to pay, but before we can even make the offer, her mother tells us, "You invited us, so you should pay." Her father chimes in with, "But don't tip more than 10%. We don't want to fund illegals." I grunt non-committally, and when the receipt comes back, I tip about 25%, in part to compensate the staff for having to deal with our table. Mother-in-law tries to hurry us out because she needs to use the bathroom. I tell her to use the restaurant bathroom. She says she doesn't want to use the bathrooms that they got the ingredients from. My wife is visibly fuming, but says nothing until we leave the building, at which point she explodes at her parents, cursing them out for being colossal bastards and saying she can't take them anywhere. They fire back at her, she's not deterred, and the argument continues for several minutes until I gently pull on my wife's arm and tell her that we'll just go home without them. We drive home. I notice I have several missed calls and my wife has angry voicemails about how her parents had to get an Uber, wait for it to arrive, her mom had to go at the back of the restaurant because she couldn't hold on, and how they want us to pay them the Uber fare plus tip. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Okay, they sound terrible. So why would you take them to a place they would clearly hate, and that would invite all of their terrible comments? I understand wanting to widen horizons and all that, but this couldn't have been the first time they ever made such openly discriminatory remarks in public, so why invite a ruined evening? Everyone sucks here. Comment 2. You didn't know they were discriminatory before this? Really? Really? You should have met them at Denny's, but I'm sure they'd find something or someone to complain about there too. Now for the update, thanks for tuning in again. So after that dinner disaster, things didn't get any better. My wife's parents, they just couldn't let it go. They kept bringing it up every time we saw them, which was a lot since they lived close by. They even started telling relatives that we abandoned them at the restaurant, twisting the story to make us look bad. Then about a month later, my wife's cousin had a wedding. Big event, lots of family. We were all there trying to have a good time, but her parents were still holding a grudge. They cornered us during the reception, demanding we apologize for the humiliation at the Indian restaurant. My wife tried to smooth things over, but her dad just wouldn't have it. He started ranting about how we disrespected him, how we were always too politically correct, and how we didn't understand the real world. It was embarrassing, and it got worse when he brought up the 9/11 story again, right there in the middle of the wedding. People were staring, and my wife was close to tears. I was so angry I wanted to yell back, but I kept quiet for her sake. A week after the wedding, my wife's mom called. She said she was feeling unwell and asked if we could come over. We went thinking maybe this was a chance to mend things. But when we got there, her mom was fine. It was a trap. They wanted to talk about the restaurant night again, but this time they had proof that we were in the wrong. They had saved the Uber receipt and wanted us to pay it, plus extra for the stress we caused. My wife was furious. She told them we wouldn't pay a cent and that they were being ridiculous. Her dad shouted, her mom cried, and my wife stormed out. I followed, feeling like this was a breaking point. Things were quiet for a while after that. No calls, no visits. But then, out of nowhere, my wife's parents showed up at our house. They had a letter from a lawyer threatening to take us to small claims court over the Uber fare and emotional distress. It was absurd, but they were serious. We tried to reason with them, but they wouldn't listen. They said we owed them, that we had to pay for our mistakes. My wife was shaking with anger, and I was at a loss. We told them to leave, that we'd see them in court if we had to. The court date came, and it was as ridiculous as you'd imagine. The judge looked over everything, listened to both sides. In the end, he dismissed the case, saying it was a family matter and that the court shouldn't be involved. We were relieved, but her parents were livid. They said we'd pay one way or another. After the court, things got worse. Her parents started spreading rumors about us in the family, saying we were bad people, that we didn't care about family. It was like they were on a mission to ruin our reputation. Then 2 months after the court date, my wife got a call from her aunt. Her parents had been in a car accident. They were okay, but the car was totaled. They blamed us, said the stress we caused led to the accident. They demanded we buy them a new car. My wife broke down. She couldn't handle it anymore. She told her parents that was it. We were done. No more contact, no more help, nothing. Her parents were shocked, but my wife was resolute. It's been a month since she cut them off. It's been hard on her, but she says it's for the best. Our life has been calmer, but there's a sadness there too. She misses the good parts of her parents, but she knows they're too caught up in their own anger to see what they've lost. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.